Hello, and welcome back to Sharing a Chapter a Day. This is Do, Ra, me, and today I will be reading Chapter 92 of Engagement in Peril by Dara, Odoe, Sok. Chapter 92 is titled Shinshin'S Body Found. The sad, soulless, and solemn sound of Bright Eyes, sung by Art Garfunkel, to this day numbingly echoes in my aching head and heart still. It was the last song that was playing during Shinshin Zagami's funeral. It was one of his favorite songs. Shinshin loved listening to sad songs that tell stories of lost love, troubles, and hardship. That's all he casually listened to all the time. Somehow, he can relate to those miserable songs. Thinking about it now, the song suits him well. His eyes always had a glow, a cheerful glow that goes well with his crooked smirk. He always had those expressions on his face, no matter the occasion or situation. It was just simply who he was then. He wasn't the type to show much emotion to anyone. Expressions was dull to him, facially or verbally. All the time, at all times, he always seemed to be calm and collected, in control of himself and his surroundings, one can say, and yet, after all that was previously said, Shinshin had suffered and died from a terrible, painful, mysterious death. To this day, his death is entangled in a cold case mystery file and stored in a cardboard box with the thousands of unsolved cases at the Cherry Pineapple Grove Police Department storage room. And for those who loved and cared for him, his tragic demise and loss have crushed and struck painful, deep sorrows within all of those who once knew him. Unknowingly and undoubtedly to myself, my body shivers with the drowning rain upon me. It is now that I am left alone to my misery, alone with Shinshin's coffin in this muddy pit before me. I paid no attention to the rushing cemetery worker as they used the wildcat mini boulders to push in the dug up wet dirt atop Shinshin's coffin, returning the soggy puddle of soil back to the earth where it had come from. The heavy rain drowned out the noise the mechanical shovel made, and all I heard is that damn miserable song that Shinshin played over and over and over again whenever we were home and at our outings together about and around our hometown of Cherry Pineapple Grove. I'm not sure if I was crying at the moment then, but I'm surely as hell crying now as I write this piece to confess my misdeed against my beloved Shinshin. I'm drenched and soaked in this unusual, unexpected rain in Southern California. Taste of bitter and salty water falls and shower all over me, soaked from head to toe, and my tears just flows as though they were the rain themselves. My slightly burning, irritated eyes still focus on him, eyeing him through his coffin as though I can see him clear as day. I picture him through the carved piece of pinewood casket, and the acidic sodium taste upon my lips accompanied my last moments with him. The last one in his sigh I was. Everyone else who attended his funeral has gone and left, perhaps to get away from all these unexpected downfall. It's gonna be much different without Shinshin around. Maybe for the better. That's what I like to think at times. So I wish at times as I think about him, I stuck around until his burial plot was filled to the surface. And after, I whimpered and whispered to myself my last words. Goodbye. Goodbye, Shinshin. I'll see you on the other side. I too staggered myself off and away from him, drenched and dirty toward my cherry-flamed exterior, still thinking about Shinshin and how I found him during his last moments of life, because at our apartment, not too far from this All Soul Cemetery. A love found and lost. It is with wide-eyed open that I come clean and tell you this. When it comes to keeping friendships and relationships, I have failed in both and have been a total bastard about everything. I can't even keep a friendship with a guy that I've come to adore and cherish. And at times I feel that his horrible death was the result of my deceit and lies behind his back. What led to this? Well, many things led to Shinshin's unfortunate, mysterious, comatose death. But I'm sure it was my selfish, secretive involvement with his supposedly lover that drove him over the edge. It was several days before Christmas this past year that I found Shinshin's bloody, wrinkled body in our one-bedroom apartment bathtub where we reside in the city of Cherry Pineapple Grove. Seeing his lifeless body soaking there, Seeing his lifeless body soaking there brought back eerie memories that reminded me of the bloody ditches filled with dead bodies of Cambodians that my mother and I encountered during our escape from the tyranny of the Khmer Rouge insurgents in the mid and late 1970s. Supposedly, Shinshin had slid both his wrists up and down vertically from the edge of his palm toward his elbow. On the wet tile floor of the porcelain tub laid several of my prescription bottles of Vicodin, of which I had given to him days earlier. His blurry, soulless, wrinkled face was sad and pale as he laid still, his head slightly beneath the bathtub water level, which had overflowed the maximum capacity level. His hazy eyes still open, foggy with signs of sadness, staring at me as though blaming me for what he had done to himself. With stagnant shock, I froze from what I saw. I didn't know how to feel. Should I be sad, anguish, terrified, or angry? What am I supposed to be feeling at that moment? How does one feel during this sort of moment? How does one go about to explain during this type of moment if one has never experienced it before? Complicated and confused, a gentle, eerie, cool breeze passed over me through the small crack opening of the bathroom's window, as though it was caressing Shinshin's deceased body one last time, giving a sense of serenity for his last moment of life. He had a slight crooked smile on his face, like he always does, no matter the situation or how he was feeling. It was always his smirk that let nothing bother him. I didn't know what to think or what to do as I stood there, paralyzed and dazed from what I was seeing. I had come home for lunch that afternoon from work at Lincoln Elementary. The school I was subbing at was nearby, and I also came over to cheer him up from what had happened to him months earlier. I had brought him his favorite El Pollo Loco meal, a chicken meal bowl with his favorite soft drink, several months earlier after that terrible loss and no contest judgment at the local municipal court to that conniving bitch of a whore Delilah. Shinshin had moved in with me to get things in his life straightened out mentally and emotionally. Since I only had a one-bedroom apartment, he was willing to sleep on the pull-out couch in the living room, and he was helping me with rent and expenses. Although the rotten bitch had gotten him fired from his work, where he had honorably served for the last 9 years, Shinshin had some saving, which he used toward helping out with the rent, grocery, and utility. He was trying to piece his life back together again. Starting anew, he usually stated during our minuscule, funny, hearty conversation at times. I never would have thought in a million years that Shinshin was the type of person that would take his own life, not over some horrible bitch that did him wrong. Even with the terrible event that happened to him months earlier, he still had that crooked smirk on his face. He was somewhat religious, more religious than I had been, and he knew that he would be going to hell if he had taken his own life. It is the cowardly way out. It is the cowardly way out. That's what he often tells me about committing suicide. Shinshin was quite the devoted pagan Christian then. He often worshipped and prayed on a daily basis. Shit, the last time I saw the inside of a church was back in August of 1989, the Sunday before my mom moved my sibling and me to Southern California. Seeing Shinshin's lifeless body there and then, I knew that I had been such a bastard, both as a friend and as a companion, and at that very moment, I was torn. A bastard torn, one can say. I spent like an eternity there before his deceased body, frozen firmly against the bathroom's door edge, staring at Shinshin's burdened face, confused and terrified of what had happened to my dear friend and brother. No, to my love, whom I have cheated and lied to this entire time spent together. And in thoughts I asked myself, what did you do, Dara? What the fuck did you do? Terrified and confused, not one to be drastically over-religious, I silently apologized to God for my sins, cheats and deception against my good friend and beloved Shinshin. A million thoughts ran through my head, and I just couldn't believe what had happened. Looking down on the floor, my prescription bottles had Shinshin's bloody fingerprints on it, and I was quite sure what to do. And I wasn't quite sure what to do, Are the cops gonna blame me for this because of my pills? Shinshin had told me days earlier that he wanted some painkiller for his long-term aching body, and that over-the-counter Tylenol, Motrin, and aspirin weren't helping, and he needed something stronger. So I gave him several bottles of my Vicodin and Valium, of which I hardly ever used, which I got from the local veteran hospital near the city State University every now and then during my biannual visits and routine checkup for my multiple psychological medical disabilities. Besides, years back to our heyday serving in the armed services together, I was the one who had told and showed Shinshin how to commit suicide by the way of wrist slicing, the proper way to do it if one was to attempt to take his or her own life by that particular method. Shit! What was I thinking and doing then, teaching him that sort of shitty thing? After some reminiscing of our involvement and time spent together, I rushed toward the bathtub, slipping and sliding my way across the blood-soaked tile floor toward Shinshin, and I pulled him out of the blood-filled tub and thrust his limp body onto the soaked floor beneath. With a quick thud, I guided and gently laid him supinely on the floor. And thinking back to my heyday as a combat corpsman with the United States Navy and Marines, I quickly went about checking his ABCs, airway, by tilting his head back and listening to and feeling for air and breath, breathing by checking his abdomen and chest to see if they were rising, and circulation by touching the carotid and ulnar pulse on his neck and wrists. While eagerly looking for a vital sign, I felt the slightest pulse come from his carotid. After a long impression upon his throat and neck, I fumbled through my khaki cargo pants pocket and pulled out my cell phone and called the city's 911 emergency response center. I quickly smacked the speaker button on and dropped the cellular phone to the wet tile floor beneath as I began CPR on Shinshin's lifeless body. The situation right there was critical, a goddamn emergency. I screamed in my head. It was over and done with if I don't get help soon. The dispatch operator calmly answered, "Cherry Pineapple Grove Police Dispatch, this is Denise. What's your emergency, and how can I help you?" With a short pause and a deep breath, I loudly, frantically replied, Denise, I'm so-and-so, and I'm at so-and-so, and I found my friend Shinshin in the bathtub, and he had slit his wrists. Can you please send over some help? I really need help here. He has faint pulse, and I'm starting CPR on him right now. Denise replied with some instruction, "Sir, can you calm down and slow down your speech, and please give me your name and tell me what's going on, slowly and clearly, sir." After repeating myself much slower and clearer, and between my info to Denise, the dispatcher, I was giving Shinshin breaths and chest compression. After getting some info from me, Denise advised me to stay on the line while she relayed my emergency to the necessary people who could help. Without hesitation and not minding what was told to me, I abruptly went about my business, trying to revive Shinshin back from the dead and continue with my amusement with Shinshin's limp, soaking body on the blood-drenched tile floor. I didn't bother hanging up the phone, hoping that the city dispatcher can track my cellular phone GPS whereabout and send some help soon to assist me at this critical time while my best friend was dying. I just stood my ground beside Shinshin, on my hands and knees, praying and working on him all at the same time, not worrying about my own safety or keeping it sanitary. I kept giving him compression mouth to mouth, hoping for the arriving personnel and help to try to hurry the fuck up. Lost in thought, I was wondering how long it would take the ambulance, cop, or whoever they sent to arrive to the emergency scene. Cop, ambulance, and emergency responder around here are usually slow because it's a neighborhood, an area we live in. It wasn't like we were living on the east side of town where the majority of the inhabitants there were white and affluent people. We were in the central crime-ridden area of the melting pot city, low-income housing, living with the muggers, thieves, gangbangers, prostitutes, hoes, and the scums of the city and whatnot. During a situation that would take a local cop minutes to arrive to the east side of town, I estimated that it would take some time longer, and I was only 3.5 miles from their main station. After some time, to show that they were rushed to the scene, I heard the ambulance siren blaring and screeching toward our direction. They probably turned on several blocks away from where I and Shinshin were then. Fucking cops and fucking piece of shit of a city. I despise those bastards and what they stand for. Son of a bitch. Sons of bitches. They are only there when you don't need them. I coldly thought while I busied and fumbled at my current task, trying to stabilize Shinshin's dying body. They pulled into the driveway atop the street curb and onto the sidewalk, looking at them through my open screen door. They were taking their damn sweet time to arrive. Assholes! Fucking assholes! I screamed in my angered, flustered head. Fucking asshole! Fuck them! Got to get back to Shinshin's well-being, Dara. Got to get back to Shinshin's well-being, Dara, as I caught and told myself to take control. At the top of my lungs, screeching my screams, I yelled for them to come in and help. Help! Help! Hey, help! I'm over here, please! Please help! There were 2 squad cars and a city-funded ambulance had arrived. They didn't really need all that personnel. I'm sure they only came along for the credit so they could mark it on their docket and time card that they arrived to and participate in emergency scenes of sort. I can't open the door right now. I'm doing CPR on Shinshin, I frantically screamed and hollered. In a panic, I left Shinshin's side and rushed open to the door to open the metal screen door. In a panic, I left Shinshin's side and rushed to open the metal screen door. And as I reached for the knob and lock, simultaneously with a worn-down black metal crowbar, they pried open the rusted black metal screen door of my apartment door latch, breaking and damaging my screen door's lock and bolt in the process. The first officer didn't bother talking to me. He rudely pushed me out of the way and made his way towards Shinshin's body in the drenched bathroom hall. He rudely pushed me out of the way and made his way towards Shinshin's body in the drenched bathroom down the hall from the front entrance. What the fuck? I thought to myself. On Angel's feet, I hurriedly slipped past the rude officer, slide down on my knees atop the wet, gooey floor, and continue my business with Shinshin's whole body, rushing and heavy at work, looking up the cop for assistance. That asshole, he seemed lost, as though he was a goddamn deer caught in a headlight. A moment later, the EMT pushed their way toward us. As quick as I had started the CPR, they took over the task of reviving Shinshin. The rude cop walked back outside the house toward his partner as I looked on over his shoulder with worries while the EMT took turn working on Shinshin, secretly hoping and praying that Shinshin would come back to his life and back to me once again. Just like how he returned to me after several years apart in the military, where we served at different duty stations and had different military rating then. The poor bastard's dead, the first cop rudely stated as he spoke to his partners outside. In my head and with deep hope, please don't die, Shinshin, motherfucker, the poor bastard is my friend, and what gives you the right to call my Shinshin a bastard, you fucking asshole of a cop? I thought out loud in reply to the rude cop remarks moments earlier. While the EMT were working on Shinshin, the cops were laughing about their business outside, and for some reason this time, that really bothered me to the point that I finally said something. Hanging onto the door's ledge for balance and support, abruptly cranky and peeved, I rudely uttered and what I needed to say. Excuse me, officer. Show some damn respect for my friend in here. He's not fucking dead yet, so mind your own goddamn business. I finally said something aloud. About goddamn time, Dara, as I thought to myself. I finally had my first release toward an authority in over 10 years. Not since the last time I talked back to the Marine Major who got me booted from the boost program in Newport, Rhode Island while I was going through the boost naval officer program. And that felt kind of nice then as I thought about it. The asshole cop glared back at me up and down for a second and ignored me and continued to quietly conversing with his companion who were surveying and marking off the premises. With all the commotion that the cop made, the neighbors and passersby started coming out to see what was happening. Yellow tapes and stripes were brought out to make sure, keep away the nosy crowded audience, people chit-chatting and asking what was going on as I heard from the back seat. People in their everyday insecurity and curiosity talk on as the cop kept them several feet away from our first-floor one-bedroom apartment situated on Hemingway Street near the Midi-Asian Market along the recently city-approved Anaheim Cambodian corridor, also known as Cambodian Town. What a bunch of rubbish. What would they call that area that? Why would they call that area that? Those damn Cambodians sure as hell didn't deserve that area to be called that. I remember that they had protested and even did a sit-in protest at City Hall several times just to get the area name for them. What a bunch of selfish, unthankful, ignorant, and uncharitable group of people. As I angrily thought about something else not related to Shinshin's emergency then. After another 5 minutes or so working on his limp body, fortunately the EMT were able to slightly revive Shinshin. The paramedic were able to cause Shinshin's body to cough up blood and bathtub water from his lungs and throat. I then rushed to his side to see how he was doing. While one of the EMTs stabilized Shinshin's neck with a brace, The others secured both Shinshin's wrists with some gauze and bandages and went to the ambulance and got the gurney and backboard. Looking at Shinshin, some of his brownish color had returned to his face. Although still pale and prune-like from the attempted suicide, slashing and drowning in the tub, he had some slight brown hue on his face now. Like usual, he had a crooked smirk on his face. His eyes were not responsive to the paramedic miniature pen light. They were still glazed, but he seemed to be looking up at me, though. Maybe saying, hey to me. There was something different about Shinshin then as I looked down at him. There was a hard blue plastic tube sticking out from his throat. The paramedic had cut and inserted a tube into his esophagus to help them with reviving Shinshin's breathing. They had performed a tracheotomy on Shinshin. I guess it was a last resort to assist him with his breathing. Tim, one of the EMTs, asked me how long Shinshin was under the water. Puzzled, I wasn't sure at all, and that's what I told him. Maybe 5 or 10 minutes. When I got here from lunch, it took me like a minute or two to pull him out of the overflowing bathtub. He then stated, "You did a good job giving him CPR and such, and he was lucky you came home when you did." Lucky? I thought I should be the one lying on the bloody floor like that, not Shinshin. I would gladly have taken Shinshin's place if given the chance, I thought. Once Shinshin was stabilized enough to be lifted, they slid the gurney smooth, steady board under him while they supported his weight and body as they turned him on his side and back again onto the gurney board and lifted him onto the gurney mount and pushed him toward the ambulance. I walked behind them as they pushed Shinshin limped, exhausted body toward into the living room and out of our one-bedroom apartment front door. Then, once in the back of the ambulance, they began to insert needles and tubes in Shinshin's arm and veins and placing EKG leads all over his body to monitor his vitals. A tube is stuck down his throat through his mouth to aid with his breathing. Shinshin was still unresponsive to any of their tests and poking. One of the EMTs softly stated that he'd think that Shinshin may be brain dead since he was under the water for so long. I sort of guessed that too in my thoughts, that maybe he was under the water way too long. I should have been there for him sooner. God damn it! In some frustration, I surprisingly screamed out loud, which startled the EMT, who quickly responded to my unwarranted outburst from my sadness and frustration. They continued working on Shinshin as I looked on, and moments later, a female officer in her early 30s came and calmly asked me, Hi, excuse me. Hi, I'm Officer Jacobs with the Cherry Pineapple Grove Police Department. Do you know and are you with this person in the gurney there in the back of the ambulance, and can I talk to you? She had asked. Looking back at her, well, actually like my usual deviant self, no matter the occasion, I had time to be me. I was eye-fucking her up and down, and I didn't care if she noticed it or not. Sure, I dismissingly replied toward the buxom, talented peace officer, while walking behind her in the same direction toward her vehicle. The navy blue uniform she had on held her nicely together, showing that she was in fantastic physical shape. Her ample bosom was slightly hidden from the light Teflon vest she wore underneath, but the curvature of her side boob were revealing them nicely. Officer Jacob was about 5'7" and perhaps about 130 pounds or so, C-plus size perky knockers and with dirty blondish hair and light brown eyes. She was left-handed and carried a black steel Glock 17 handgun. Let's go over here by my squad car, so it's less noisy, she beckoned. Whatever, officer, but I need to go with my friend Shinshin here, I questionably replied as I followed her toward her vehicle. Sure, no problem. Let me get some information from you first, okay? And I'll make sure the ambulance waits for you, she reassured me while clasping her overworked hands together. I followed her with my eyes locked on her firm ass. Seductively, they swayed side to side. One rump goes up while the other goes down, smooth and in sync. They motioned at me as she marched onward. While talking to her, instinctively I made sure that I didn't put my handprint on her cruiser. Instead, I leaned against the squad car trunk with my buttock and my arms folded and tucked amongst themselves as we talked about what had happened and what I know about what had happened. Before her first question, I excused myself and made a phone call to the school I was subbing at and told them that I won't be able to return to work today since I was having a family emergency. And Officer Jacob confirmed that my statement was true and honest with the school secretary then. It was a nice gesture that she did that for me, which she didn't have to, but it was nice all the same as I thought it over. The school informed me that they would get an administrator to cover for me for the rest of the school day and that I could pick up my time card whenever I had time later on to do that. Officer Jacobs, she asked me the general stuff. You know, like how I know the victim and how long and what my relations was with him. The victim there is my good friend Shinshin Nagami, and I've known him since we met at Navy Basic over 10 years earlier. We're roommate at my apartment there. He moved in with me several months back, I stated while pointing at my appointment up ahead. Do you know why the victim would do this to himself? She asked right after my previous reply. I abruptly countered, his name is Shinshin, and you should address him by that, please. Not victim, and no, I don't know why he would do this to himself. Although thoughts came to mind at that moment, I was thinking maybe he didn't take the stuff that I had told him about me and his ex-lover fucking around too well. He didn't believe it at first till I showed him some pictures, videos, and a website that Delilah and I and a few others had made during our fuckfest encounters and meeting. She even had the audacity to post herself on several free adult web pages. That's right, Delilah had the audacity to post herself masturbating and jacking off on several adult web pages where she was masturbating and stuffing her cunt with a small thin blue dildo which she made for her current, recent, or other exes that Shinshin and I had no idea about. I only had told Shinshin everything about my involvement with that bitch I only had told Shinshin everything about my involvement with that bitch of his Delilah 7 weeks ago. I have lied to and kept my involvement with that bitch of a whore from him for the longest time, and it hurts me to think that I was so stupid then to fuck around my dear friend's back. Abruptly, Officer Jacob continued on. Do I know if the victim had family, and do I know their contact information, asking for my name, address, and phone number? I gave her the necessary info that I knew, and she told me that she'll contact me later for more info. She told me that I won't be allowed back into the apartment until they are done with their evidence gathering and such, and that I should find another place to stay at in the meanwhile. Luckily, that place I can go to stay at was my mother's, several houses down from the mine on the same graffiti-tagged-up central block off of Anaheim Street corridor. Officer Jacob handed me her business card, and I handed her my substitute teaching business card as well, and then we parted ways after we exchanged our numbers and info. I rushed toward my apartment and then toward the waiting ambulance, and she returned toward her fellow officer to exchange notes and information. Her white eggshell business card was embossed and read, Jillian Jacobs, Cherry Pineapple Groves, Police Department, with her cell, office, and badge number beneath her name. I looked as we parted, mainly staring at her tight, ample ass as she walked back to her fellow officer to discuss what information she had gathered from me while we talked. Afterward, I rushed back to my apartment to grab a few personal items and zoom out to the ambulance and went to sit beside Shinshin as the ambulance blared its way towards St. Mary Hospital, since it was the closest medical facility with an emergency room to our neighborhood. We were all silent for a moment, and there during the ride toward the ER. We were all silent for a moment there during the ride toward the ER. The EMT busied himself with Shinshin's vitals and status. I focused on his lame body and lost in thought of what was to come or what had happened moments ago. The ambulance screamed westbound on Anaheim Street toward Atlantic Avenue, where it took a sharp left and a quick right at the next street, turning and entering the emergency room's driveway. While on my way to the hospital with Shinshin, I called my mom and told her what had just happened and told her to look after my apartment. She told me that she would and that she would go out there to see what was going on. According to my mother, about half an hour or so later, the city's white crime scene unit van arrived to the scene, and they went about their duties, lifting fingerprints, taking and packaging evidence, taking pictures of the incident scene, and of Shinshin's blood and clothes behind. They took some liquid sample of the tub water. Then after they drained the tub, they found the sharp, double-edged razor he used to cut himself and bagged it as evidence in this small manila envelope. They took pictures of the scene and area and marked spots of evidence and such with numbers and measurements. After the evidence collection and tagging, they left the scene. My mom went into my apartment to clean up after the mess that Shinshin, I, and the emergency attendees had made from the early incident. Before all the police and investigators left my apartment, several more officers asked my mother questions about my relations and involvement with the injured, and they told her that they would be contacting me later on for more info. I was yet to shed a tear for my Shinshin at that moment. I don't know why I couldn't, maybe because I was overwhelmed, or maybe it hasn't hit me yet that my dear friend, no, my love, was dying and soon will pass. As I think now, this isn't the first time that someone had died in my arms. I feel as though I am some sort of bad luck, bad karma for people I care about and love. It sucks to be me at that moment. It sucks to be me at any moment, even being me right now. Still lost in my thought as the ambulance rushed on toward its final destination, I thought about Officer Jacobs and how good she looked. How good she looked in her tight-ass uniform, and I was picturing what was underneath all that gear and armor she had on. She had such the cutest face, with a tiny light mole above her right lips. Her peachy tan face was lovely, with several light scars from nicks and scratches. Maybe she got them from some tussle and hassle, and had to rough up some rogue asshole that didn't comply with her command. She was quite cute, as I thought and smiled to myself as I sat there in silence, reminiscing over Officer Jacobs' memory and memory, while I was viewing Tim and Jason, the EMTs, working on Shinshin while their partner drove onward. And with various inalienable, unrelated thoughts in my head, I continued to daydream while my beloved is dying his first death before me. As quick as we got into the ambulance, we got to the hospital, and with the screeching haul of the ambulance at the hospital emergency room, I was snapped out of my daydreaming and brought back to Shinshin's attention. Some ER attendee hurriedly rushed out to where we were, assisting with the putting down of the gurney off and out of the ambulance. The attending ER doctor came about and spoke to Tim, the EMT, and got his summary notes and printouts of the patient's vital and conditions. I picked up on some of their medical mumbo-jumbo jargon as they discussed Shinshin's state of health, which was at the moment critical. While they walked and talked, they moved Shinshin into the emergency room and into a space inside and through the rail curtain closed and tended to Shinshin's emergency. In turn, I was asked and directed to the waiting room, just outside out of the reach of my beloved. Not wanting to postpone assistance to my dying Shinshin, I agreed and made my way out of the emergency room and waited in the waiting room with some form that was handed to me to fill out for Shinshin information and such. General procedure, the ER clerk routinely stated. Internally giggling with myself, with my hands grasping and pulling back my moist hair from my brow and forehead. General procedures, son of a bitch. General procedures? This is no great general procedure. It's quite serious, I thought silently then. Thank you for listening. This is the end of Chapter 92. Be on the lookout for Chapter 93, titled Emergency Room Anticipations. This is Doe, Ra, me, and I'll see you later. Thank you.